Hello, my name's Roy Elsie. I'm Chief Analyst at Omdia, and I'll be your host for this fast chat with Jeff Baxter, VP of Product Marketing at NetApp. Welcome, Jeff. So let's start off the conversation. The rise of Gen AI has seen about every organization stating they are adopting the technology. But let's talk about some of the basics here that need to be talked about before people start working with large language models, prompts, and GPUs. So, firstly, Gen AI and the models, they need data, good, clean data, accessible data, and the correct governance. So we can talk about the challenges this represents to organizations. So, Jeff, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much AI is you get what you put into it, right? So there's the classic garbage in, garbage out phenomenon, right? If you're not training on the right data, and if you don't have the data accessible in the first place, then you're not going to get suitable results. And I think even more importantly, as people are realizing more and more, if it's not just about garbage in, garbage out, but if you put sensitive data in, you're going to inevitably get sensitive data out, right? So training on not just the right amount of data, but the right subset of data so that you get the right results and so that you don't reveal personal or private data about the company that you don't want revealed is really at the core of any sort of successful Gen AI project.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because I think one of the things that I often hear is, well, I don't even know what data I've got. How do I find this data? I mean, that's something that I think you've got a bit of experience about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's NetApp has so much of the world's unstructured data on our systems, and it's just a vast sprawl, and it's only increasing every day. So we're looking at zettabytes and zettabytes of data out in the world of unstructured data that people need to try to find structure for. And one of the things we do every day at NetApp is help our customers try to get their hands around that data. And whether it's working with different third-party providers or NetApp is actually investing a lot now in being able to build really a catalog of your data, regardless of where it is, on-prem or in the public cloud, and give you insights into that data precisely so you can curate it and build it into this authoritative data source for training AI. That's really our bread and butter, what we focus on doing every day.
And one of the things that I hear about the data and the Gen AI training is once you've found it, which we've just talked about here, it's not an obvious easy thing. Mm. It's about making the data available to these very expensive GPUs at the right speed to maximize the GPUs. And I mean, that's something people don't often think about, is it? Because, these GPUs are sitting there and they're probably waiting for the data to come in. And when the data comes in, they're then processed. So you're paying for a GPU and actually, you're only using 20% of it. So, yeah. I mean, this is something that I think you guys have certainly got with the Intelligent Data Fabric a voice on, haven't you?
Yeah, our intelligent data infrastructure is all about making sure data is in the right place at the right time, at the right cost, at the right performance. And like you said, right, the most GPUs are expensive, and the most expensive GPU is one that's not being used. And so I think we see, at least at the start, and I think it's getting better, people designing whole architectures from the start. But the idea that at the start, all you need to do is buy a lot of expensive GPUs. I mean, certainly having the right GPU capability is necessary for high-end model training. But the whole idea of making sure that you have that fast pathway to your data, using newer technologies like GPU Direct from NVIDIA, trying to use reference architectures that are out there. So NetApp has worked very closely with NVIDIA for years now to be BasePod certified and SuperPod certified. Those are all just examples, and each vendor has their own reference architectures. But you want to follow those reference architectures because they'll help you do that mapping to ensure that for every GPU you're adding enough throughput to make sure that that GPU is kept busy. And if you don't do that, that's where you end up with a very expensive, piece of silicon just sitting in your data center doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and the other part about this, and it's particularly something because I'm based in the UK, over here in Europe, one of the things that we get, and it's not just the holidays that we were talking about earlier, is the environmental sustainability angle of all this. And it's, the GPUs are one aspect of it, but the data storage and management is another aspect of environmental sustainability that people don't often think about, do they?
No, I was just at supercomputing, SC24, a few weeks ago, and almost every other booth was talking about energy usage in the data center, both from the sustainability perspective and also just from the massive amount of heat these GPU farms are putting. So every other booth, I was laughing, was on liquid cooling or immersion cooling, just to deal with the amount of heat and power these are dealing with. And it's the modern day equivalent of what we all thought was going to happen with Bitcoin farming in terms of just the ridiculous amount of energy. Now people are using it perhaps for more productive purposes, but it's still a massive energy draw. And so what we try and do on the storage side, we're not quite as much of an energy hog as GPUs are naturally, but we can be susceptible to sprawl unless you have your data carefully organized. And unless you've really carefully managed a movement to all flash. I think people have looked at flash traditionally for just performance sort of workloads, but even for large unstructured data stores, capacity flash is now at a point where you can collapse down, as one example we gave, 15 and a half racks worth of spitting hard drives into a single 2U storage system using capacity flash. And at the end of the day, the physics don't lie. And if you can collapse down to single units, a massive amount of data store, you're dramatically reducing your energy, you're dramatically reducing your heat output. And at the end of the day, that brings sustainability benefits for your entire AI infrastructure.
Yeah, and the other benefits it brings, of course, is it frees up rack space if you've got spare power to put more units in. So I think there's two wins there for organizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think finally because we're nearly at the end of our fast chat, but I think the elephant in the room with all of this is the data security and privacy aspect. I mean, we hear of ransomware attacks all the time. We've got GDPR. We've got every other country in the world coming up with data protection and various regulations. What would you advise CIOs to sort of think about when it comes to this? Because it's not just AI related, but it's bigger than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is bigger than that. It's AI is just bringing to the forefront the challenge that data really is the lifeblood of every modern organization, and the ability to keep that data curated, to classify that data, to have the right privacy controls in place, and then to have the right security controls in place is absolutely critical. As I mentioned at the top of this, right? It really is a garbage in, garbage out phenomenon, or sensitive data in, sensitive data out, right? The best way to make sure that an AI model never reveals data you don't want it to reveal is not a bunch of prompt engineering. It's to make sure it's never trained on that data in the first place. And that's why at NetApp, we spend a lot of time building data classifiers and data classification technology directly into our intelligent data infrastructure, because that way you can have that in path, you can have that in band of your AI training so that all the data is curated down to the data you need. And it's also the reason why we build in security directly into our intelligent data infrastructure. For example, having AI-driven autonomous ransomware protection so that your data is constantly protected against ransomware. We can detect ransomware attacks in progress in real time, in seconds, with 99% plus accuracy, and be able to respond in those in real time to be able to protect that data against attack, against encryption, and avoid having to pay a hefty ransom just to get your AI, but more importantly, your business back up and running.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other key things for me with all of this is making people aware that their data is the new gold.
Yes.
And organizations have really got to take care of it. But not all that data is important. So it's a matter of, as you say, the classifications that you've got, to being able to sort of say, actually, this data is rubbish. You can train that on anything you want. This data, do not do anything with. It does not leave this facility. And being clear on that and putting that into the actual data is really critical for them, because then people can't bypass it and do things accidentally, can they?
No, absolutely. And it has so many, if you realize that AI is a data problem and you tackle the data problem first, or at its core, it has so many benefits that radiate throughout your infrastructure in terms of training your Gen AI infrastructure properly, in terms of making sure that data is all secured, right? In the process of curating that data, you by definition almost discover problems with access permissions, problems with things that are in places that they shouldn't be. So it helps secure down your data. It helps with sustainability. We have a lot of customers where when you truly look at your data, you end up finding out 14 different copies of this data, where even if you need to keep it, you probably don't need 14 different copies of it. And, the easiest, cheapest way to, eliminate data sprawl is to not have the data. So, very few customers are throwing data away these days, but they are being very much more careful stewards of how many different copies they put out there. And so it helps with privacy, it helps with security, it helps with sustainability. It's just an all-around win to curate your data and really focus on that classification of your data from the outset.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. So my name is Roy Ilsey, Chief Analyst at Omdia, and this is the second of our Fast Chats. And Jeff Baxter is VP of Product Marketing at NetApp. And we've had some really interesting insights here. So thank you very much for listening.